Hello, Meakin Enterprises. We are Mac Consulting, and my name is Kyle Rich.
Christian Eckler.
Michael Lister.
Austin Ma.
First off, we'll dive into identifying the problems your business are facing today. So firstly, you must decide by either maintaining the status quo, expanding your trucking business, or expanding your farming business. Secondly, the owner of the company, David, is overworked and would like to focus more on his personal life. Thirdly, a cohesive marketing strategy for your trucking business must be derived, as currently it is operating purely off of word of mouth. And lastly, both companies face difficulties when acquiring and maintaining the workforce.
So next I will talk about the analysis of current business segments. Now there are 5 significant factors that we need to take into consideration. The first being land. The market value of land is subject to change and is given its history of increasing in value, it is likely to flatline or decline. The second factor being labor is needed for both companies and it is highly specialized, meaning it is difficult to find workers. The third factor being weather highly determines profits for both companies, especially Meakin Farms. The fourth factor, seasonality, not only affects profits but also affects the ability to keep laborers employed for both companies. The fifth and final factor is overloaded. Focusing on 2 businesses has overloaded the owner's responsibilities, leaving him with no time for family and personal life. So now I'll talk about the SWOT analysis, starting off with strengths and weaknesses. For truck strengths, they have a relatively fast cash inflow, and they have seen an increase in growth in their revenue segments, most notably in their grain and chemical hauling, and they are less affected by weather. Now for weaknesses, there's been an increase in transportation costs associated with specific goods, most notably fertilizer. There is a difficulty in coordinating bin delivery, and the majority of their equipment is financed through debt. Additionally, Meakin is limited to a 100-kilometer delivery radius from their farm. For farm strengths, Meakin Farms has a high profitability given suitable yield of crops. Their owner has 11 years of farm operating experience, and Meakin can have reduced delivery costs due to them owning Meakin Industrial. For farm weaknesses, the revenue generated is slow and volatile, given that it takes a full year to grow crops, and the revenues generated generally depends on the yield and quality of the harvest. There are also safety risks while on job, and the majority of land is leased. Additionally, there is difficulty finding labor due to a lack of technological experience. So next I will talk about the opportunities and threats. For truck opportunities, there is an increasing market demand for an alternative method of transportation as people want to rely less on the Canadian National Railway. There has also been an increase in demand for on-site grain bins, and recently Meakin reinitiated a previous contract. For threats, there is a competitive demand for labor as higher wages are offered from other companies that attracts the attention of truck drivers. Additionally, there is a significant amount of time and investment required to train staff. And Meakin has recently been undercut by other companies, thus losing market share. And finally, there is a highly competitive market. For farm opportunities, they have the opportunity to lease 960 more acres from the government. There's also been an increase in demand for organic commodities, meaning they have the opportunity to enter the organic market. There's also been a decrease in competition, and additionally, they can lease their currently owned land for additional profits. For threats, since the majority of land is leased, changes to lease agreements can affect the ability to produce crops and could render expensive equipment useless. Additionally, farms are vulnerable to bad harvest due to weather or pests.
Next, we will be looking into the analysis of your expansion options. In this analysis, we'll be covering the 3 following topics: financial, qualitative, and revenue growth. In terms of your initial capital requirements, they both require $50,000 to fund all required equipment. This amount is net of proceeds, which is the purchase price of acquiring the new items, less the money received from your disposition of your existing equipment. In either case, since the amounts are both the same, the opinion is that we are indifferent. We looked at what each option would have on your bottom line by netting new operations against your discontinued. As you can see from this graph, the farming expansion would net you $42K increase in profitability. By comparison, the trucking expansion would net you a loss of $44.2K, resulting in a difference of $46K in favor of the farming option. When comparing ROI within 1 year, farming has an ROI of 7%, whereas trucking has an ROI of negative 108. This results in a difference of 115% in favor of the farming. In terms of your first year operational expenses and capital requirements, farming will require $266K, whereas trucking will require $70K. This results in a savings of $196K, which is important with limited cash on hand. In addition, we found that selling the owned land in the trucking expansion can earn $715K. As a result, the payback periods are 0.83 years for the farming and 0 for the trucking with the sale of the land. For the qualitative factors for each option, farming has the highest profit potential if weather conditions are favorable, poor cash flows because of a long operating cycle, dangerous in terms of safety, and labor concerns with a low supply of technical workers. For trucking, it has a shorter operating cycle, leading to better cash flows, is less susceptible to weather conditions, has increasing demand, competitive labor concerns, and increasing costs. In summary, we found that the capital requirements are both the same in either option. Farming has a better financial performance, but trucking has a better cash availability and strategic fit.
Now let's discuss the revenue growth for both businesses. One thing that we would like to highlight for farming is that it's very susceptible for weather conditions. We can see that in 2016, due to the hail, both canola, wheat, as well as total revenue growth was in decline. Whereas trucking, although it's also somewhat determined on weather conditions, actually had an increase in grain hauling, seed, fertilizer, and chemical, as well as the total growth. As well, in past years, trucking has had revenue growth, whereas farming has had some years where there's no growth. Now we'll discuss strategic recommendations. One problem that you're experiencing is that you have multiple expansionary opportunities, but limited time, cash, and labor to pursue them all. We suggest that you should increase your trucking operation and reduce your farming operation. This will involve purchasing new trucks for $100,000, offset by the cost of selling existing farm equipment for $50,000, and then signing the new contract with the industrial bin manufacturer. A pivotal part of our plan involves the sale of your current land. Some problems include the significant cash flow risk of your farming operations, the fact that you're cash constrained, and that land prices are volatile. In order to combat this, we suggest selling the 800 acres of land you currently own for $715,000. This serves to finance your capital requirements for the trucking expansion. Land should be easy to sell as it is in high demand. You'll have increased cash on hand for further trucking expansion plans in the future. And finally, it mitigates the risk of fluctuating land prices.
Another problem you face would be the fact that you're often short on labor, and with so much responsibility, the owner, David, constantly finds himself overworked. To fix these issues, we propose that you consider using some of the excess cash derived from the land sale to offer competitive wages and employee benefits to your workforce, to hopefully create more loyalty to your company and less turnover in your workforce, respectively. As well as this, although focusing more heavily on the trucking business alone should relieve some responsibility for David, we propose that you consider hiring a project manager as the business grows to take care of responsibilities such as organizing deliveries. The last main issue your company faces would be the fact that you have a lack of structured marketing strategy in order to capitalize on the already existing yearly increase in revenues. Firstly, we propose that you introduce a referral program that rewards existing customers with discounts depending on how many new customers they bring to your company. This will incentivize them to speak in good faith about your services and will hopefully drive more customers your way. On top of this, we propose you advertise physically through billboards and flyers, telling farms about the benefit your company provides. Likewise, this will drive more customers your way and will grow your business accordingly.
To summarize the recommendations, first, we think you should pick option 3, the trucking expansion, sell your own land, address short and long-term labor issues, and finally, come up with a marketing strategy for your trucking division. Finally, we will discuss the implementation plan. As you can see, the implementation plan is broken down to 3 sections. Firstly, in terms of the farmland, we propose selling the land right away, as well as starting to scale down your farming operations equally in order to promote crop rotation. Next, in terms of the trucking, we propose signing the contract right away, and then as soon as the land is sold, begin hiring new employees, as well as a truck operations manager, and then train your employees, acquire permits, and buy equipment. Finally, we've also included peak season on here to show that everything will be done by then with a little wiggle room to spare. That is our presentation. Thank you very much for listening.